Eddie, um, I mean, is he the guy though? Let's be honest with each other. Is he going to be the guy that wins the trophy for Newcastle United? I mean, he's got us to really good positions before, obviously Champions League, all that saved us from relegation. But I mean, is he going to be that guy where you give? Because clearly, from what we see, we can only speculate. From what we see, he likes to have control. He likes to have, he likes to be able to have a say on everything football related. Um, and so, is he the guy though that you give all the trust and that you have him running football? I mean, Pomic is there now, so you would have to probably sack him, which would be embarrassing to be fair after not even a year. But is he the guy that you give, like maybe a Sir Alex Ferguson at Man U, or maybe a Pep, which we're getting to elite names here. Is he that guy to take Newcastle United to that level?
I'd like to think so. I really do hope so. And as you said, we have come so close. He took us to our first final in over 20 years, and we got to the Champions League for the first time in 20 years. So he's doing better things than any other manager has before since back into the late 90s. But it's just, can he take us to that next level? And I don't even necessarily think it's in his hands. Like, I think we need to continue performing on the field first and foremost, the way that we have over the past couple of years, obviously minus this season so far into the first 6 games. Yeah, we play well, and I like his style, and I think everybody fights for him. I think having a good manager behind you that you're willing to fight for and perform for is half the battle. I think, look at some of the disrest at like Chelsea and Spurs over the years. Like, with their managers, some people just don't click. Man United, they're another example.
Another one, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think everybody does like and respect and appreciate Eddie Howe. So I do feel like his style can win us a trophy, whether that be Carabao or FA Cup. I don't see him winning us the Premier League or the Champions League. I think we've got to go for one of the domestic cups first, just as that band-aid, just rip that 60-year burden off of us, just get that away, exactly, and then focus on the future. But yeah, I think Eddie Howe can lead us to success, but how much is a bit of a different question. Like, when we had the takeover, all we really needed to do was get rid of Steve Bruce. That was point number one. Get rid of that idiot as fast as possible. And we replaced him with Eddie Howe, who I think at the time was maybe a little bit of an underwhelming signing because we had big European names like Unai Emery linked. So when it was Eddie Howe, who'd been out of work for like 2 years and he was last known to get relegated with Bournemouth, it was like, is that the best we can do? Was that the Saudis' plan? Is Eddie Howe really it? But then I think he startled all of us. I don't think anybody expected Eddie Howe to be how good he was. And I think them 2 years that he spent out learning under it was at Simeone, spent some time at Atletico, traveling Europe, learning different plans. Like, he wasn't sitting on his arse on Marbella Beach like what Steve Bruce would have been doing. Like, he was working during them 2 years. He was learning things, developing his craft. So the Newcastle Eddie Howe isn't the Bournemouth Eddie Howe. He's a different animal. Them 2 years out of work helped his career massively. But still, is he going to be the guy? Like, I know we've had the takeover where we've got that target. We're technically the richest club in the world, so everybody expected us to be fighting for Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. Is Eddie Howe that guy? Again, I hope so, but truthfully, I can't see it. But that's fine, because I think all Eddie Howe was brought in to do was to steady the ship, and he's more than done that. He's passed his job expectation by far. So we've gone further than we ever thought that we could have under Eddie Howe. But I think, yeah, he's just brought in to steady the ship and take us away from the bottom three. And he got us into the Champions League. He's done a superb job. And that's why I want him to stay on for longer. But if you think about Man City, they kind of had like a bit of a mini takeover before the big takeover. I think it was like a Thai takeover, like a couple of years before the Dubai takeover. So like during that time between the two takeovers, they didn't win things with their first manager. It was Roberto Mancini won their first Premier League. They went through Kevin Keegan, Mark Hughes, Sven-Goran Eriksson. Like, it took time for Man City to develop. They didn't win anything in the first year, 2-3 years. It took a little bit of time buying players like your Craig Bellamy's, your Shea Givens, your Gareth Barry's, like people like that, just to kind of put a little bit of infrastructure to develop. That's what we done with like your Dan Burns and your Chris Woods and your Nick Popes and people like that. So for me, the time is going to come where we will be there We've just got to get past this FFP bollocks and make money. Like, that's the thing. We weren't making money previously because no one was
Exactly.
paying to watch Steve Bruce's shite.
Right.
Mike Ashley's rubbish. Like, we
Yeah,
weren't
exactly.
making money. We still aren't making Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal money. We're miles behind them guys still. Like, we need to build an infrastructure, which is what we've been doing quietly for the past 3 years. But we've still got a long way to go. So yeah, I think if we want to win a Premier League, we aren't going to win one within the next 3 years, say. So Eddie Howe will do me fine for the next 2-3 years, continue the development, and then maybe move on to a bigger name, kind of more proven European worthy manager. And then he will win us a league trophy, maybe it's a Champions League trophy. But for me, I think Eddie Howe can win a domestic cup within the next couple of years, but we just need the money to come in to spend. We need to just continue to develop this team and buy better and better players, because we're still stuck with not great. Like, we've just got rid of Paul Dummett, for God's sakes. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
we've still got bang average players at the bottom of the depth chart.
But then we renew Gillespie, and then the goalkeeper.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. We've got like 6 goalkeepers, and like, who's even going to play? Like, where did Odysseas Vlachodimos, or whatever the hell he's called, come from? Like, we've got Mark Gillespie. I'm surprised we didn't re-sign Karius just for the crack.
Just for the crack of it, yeah.
We've still got Dubravka. I thought he was going to go.
He's still free, apparently, if you want him. I mean, he's
wouldn't be surprised. Why not? Get him in the under 21s, even though he's about 49.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't know what is going on, but we need to get it sorted quick. Once we can get back on a parallel, Eddie Howe can do a phenomenal job for another 2-3 years. But is he going to be the guy to move us to a consistent top 4 team, a knockout caliber Champions League team, a top 3 Premier League worthy team? I don't think so. He's a great option short term, but for us to be deadly serious, to go like a Mancini, a Mourinho, Conte, Guardiola route, he's not that level.
It's going to be tough.
I agree with everything you've just said there, buddy. Thanks,
Edgy. Thank you. Please hit the like, folks. Hit the like button. Go on, Gary.
No, I agree with everything you've just said there, buddy. But my concern is, can he do it with Paul Mitchell? Because these guys need to work together.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we need to get the background stuff sorted. As I say, like, as a manager or as a head coach, Eddie Howe can be short-term successful, but he needs the club to help him out. Like, we need to get back to where we were last season with Staveley, with Ashworth. Like, we were spending good money. I say them now are seen as bargains, and your Brunos, Botmans, Isaacs. Like, it was a lot of money, but it's proven worthy. So we've been able to spend well. But yeah, I just think right now, coming at the end of the PSR kind of 3-year rotating year, we're just screwed because, like I say, we weren't making money. We need to be able to make money, to spend money. We need everybody to be on the right track, have the same goals and objectives and transfer targets. And we just seem so far away from that right now. Like, it's just been such a huge disconnect. We need to get back on track. Once we're on that track, we can go full steam ahead, win a domestic cup, put all of your trust in Eddie Howe, and you will win us a cup within the next 2 or 3 years.
And I think you guys were Gary and the Mighty Wayne were talking in the breakfast show this morning. How and the Mighty Wayne said, we don't need to sell our best players, which I agree with that in itself. However, how could we already got Adidas? We already got. Well, we don't. We could name the stadium. I guess that could be another thing, but at the end of the day, how much more money can we raise without selling our best players? That's the biggest point.
Yeah.
That's the biggest question, because, and also with that being said, if we don't make, for some reason, if we don't make it to Champions League, I think it would be this. I think that would be the cause of Eddie not being a manager next season for us. Just putting it out there because of just thinking of how PIF might think, because with no other tournaments, I mean. You got the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, but you should be able to qualify for Europe. And if you don't, then I think Eddie's going to be in trouble. And
I think for the minute, Chris,
because with that, how do you retain those other guys? It's a domino effect. How do you retain those guys?
I think though, you see, as you said there, rightly said. I think we're missing out on a trick. It sounds, it sounds to me as if I ITK there. It looks to me as if they're waiting to see what goes on with Man City, the ruling over the third-party system, before they'll address the ground sponsor, the training kit, the training ground, blah blah blah. But to me, why not just get somebody on board if they've got these so-called, Aramco and Saudi Air in the background? Just say, give us 15 million for this year, and just do a very short-term contract to cover this year, and then play on whoever wins at the end of it. So I do think we're missing out on some, and Keg is absolutely bang on. For years and years and years, we've not made any money whatsoever. Ashley was shrewd in the market by sponsoring the ground, didn't give anything to the club, he just took it. And obviously, every player bought, there was a player sold to try and balance the books. The one good thing, obviously, he didn't leave us in a lot of debt. But for me, my conversation with Win earlier was, I don't think, apart from this 50, I think it's 54 million pounds that's in the pot, I don't think we've got a lot more money until an investment of some description, whether that be player sales or, a third party input, we're going to be able to get any more than maybe one player in January, depending on obviously what marquee signing he goes for.
Yeah.
So for me, it is a difficult one to read. Win keeps on saying we've got 130 million. By the way they speak, it doesn't sound like they've got over 100 million at all.
Well,
No,
I mean, we've made offers over time. It wasn't going to be all up front, but I mean, you would assume.
Yeah, it was scheduled. I mean, it was 55 million scheduled up to 70 million over a period of time. But obviously, that's when they started to move the goalposts further and further afield because they just didn't want to sell Gay anyway. So I just couldn't see the point in spending 2 weeks just talking about the same thing that they spoke about the week before.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it is unfortunate that I do feel like we are going to need to sell players soon, and it has been mentioned. It was mentioned before that PSR deadline. I think we're doing very well to keep like our big key marquee signings, like your Gordons and your Brunos, who were linked. Like a lot of teams wanted them, and it's understandable. But because we didn't have European football this year, I thought that might have been a way out. But I think because we're still kind of so early into the takeover projects, like these players have just signed like only like a couple of years ago, and I think they all understood that it was going to be a long-term goal. I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit by overachieving by getting into the Champions League. Like I think we got there far too early, and that's kind of had a bit of a negative effect on us because everyone expects that year in year out now. But we shouldn't have gone that far ahead, like a Carabao Cup final in a top four finish. Like we overdone that far too quickly. So we've set an expectation that we can't uphold now. I think if this summer was in 2-3 summers time, then Bruno's, Gordon, Isaacs would have probably been putting in transfer requests because they would have been like, I want to play in the Champions League, and we haven't even gotten into the bloody Conference League. I think we're kind of lucky in that sense. But if that happens again next summer, I think we could be in real danger. But with that danger is, as Gary said, we'd need to sell players. That's the only way to make money. Because pre-takeover, if you look at that squad, nobody wanted to buy our players, and it's understandable because they were all shit. Like we didn't have anybody worth spending. And even if you look around the ones that we've still got now, like Almiron, how much are you going to get for Almiron? Murphy, Lascelles, Dubravka, how much are they worth? Kraft, like all these pre-takeover signings, they're worth nothing, or not enough at least anyway. Like we sold, what was like Maxi we barely got 20 million for, which I thought was massively undervalued. I felt like we could have got more for Maxi. And everyone else that we've sold, like we're doing really, really good business, to be fair, selling Minter and Anderson. I think we got a lot of money for them too, and that really helped us keep us afloat. So it's good that we kind of sold Anderson, who was only going to be a fringe player. Minter were never seen in the black and white, so we didn't really know what he could be. So we're doing well to get, I think it was about 70 million for the pair of them, and instead of selling like a Gordon or a Bruno. So that was very good business. But to make money, unfortunately, one of them is going to have to go, because you can sell all of them players that I just mentioned. You could sell 6 or 7 players and scrape, 30 million together? Yeah. What good's that going to do? Like,
what are you going to get for it?
Yeah, we could sell one marquee player for 120 million, then bang, you're straight in the money. You can turn that around, spend that, like another couple, like a Bruno Botman, 35, 40 million. You can turn that money around and spend it well. But because just where Mike Ashley left us with no turnover and no sellable players, like what happened to do that by ourselves now? Like Minter was a post takeover signing, and we've already flipped him. Like we just need to just kind of keep flipping players. Unfortunately, like we're building a young core, like your Gordons and Isaacs, Botmans. They're very, very young players, and I want these guys to stick around for the next 10, 15 years and make their entire career at Newcastle. But one day, within the next 2-3 years, we're gonna have to sell them before the transfer market goes down. Otherwise, where else is that money going to come from?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I agree.
So yesterday we put up a poll on the community of the channel. 158 people voted. What do you think about the game against Fulham? But obviously, the answers might lead you to what's happening this season. The first answer, disaster. Eddie is running out of time. Second answer, give it time. Eddie will figure it out. 54% voted, give it time. Eddie will figure it out. 46% is a disaster, and Eddie is running out of time. So it's pretty divided, the fan base, just in that. I mean, obviously, given time is winning, but it's about fans that had nothing basically. And like Keg was saying, all of a sudden you got all this, Champions League, you got finals, and then the next season you expect the same thing, and it's
That's
so
exactly right.
hard. It's so hard. I couldn't even think, what team really, other than Man City right now, governing the Premier League and English football. I don't even know if they made it back to FA Cup or Carabao, but they probably did, to be honest. But it's not every team. That doesn't happen with every team, and so maybe a little bit of patience would be needed from the fan base. But you're also asking that to a fan base that's been deprived for years and years, and so it's not a difficult thing what we're going through. Right now, because fans are not patient at the moment. And again, you can ask for patience, but is it fair? Because these fans, you can't wait any longer, man. You can't. It's been tough. Let's get to the comments and see what people are saying about these subjects. Beard says, "How doesn't want anyone interfering?" I don't think. I don't think. Whenever I've seen him asked about Ashworth and now Mitchell, he's given a cold answer. Well, we kind of clarify that he's not really.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem that he likes to work with the DOF or anybody above him, to say the least. But also Amanda leaving. Maybe Amanda was the direct contact with Eddie, and now she's gone, and he has to talk with Eels, and maybe the treatment is different. Maybe it's not this boss employee type, cool relationship anymore. Maybe it's more of a cold relationship where everything is by the book, and I'm just giving that example. So it's and this all has happened after Amanda and Meredith left. So although there were rumors about Ashworth as well and the nephew, etc., Eddie's nephew in there. Niall says Eddie does not like DOF. He never wanted Ashworth either. He also says, does anyone ask Man U, Liverpool, and Man City if they talk to their DOF every day? Well, as far as the press conference is concerned, I mean, you can tell that the reporters are asking. That's all they're asking about, really. It's almost never about the game anymore. It's how do you get along with Ash or Mitchell, and the next question is about Mitchell and just worded different, and so that can't be fun for him. And it's not fair for Eddie also to answer the transfer woes. I mean, obviously he has had, I would assume, some input, but it has to be Darren Neals, who's been really quiet, hasn't said a word. So I also call for the leadership to actually be leaders when things are not going well. He was up there dancing in the stack. I've seen him here when he came to America. Very cool guy. But when things are well, it seems to be that he's a very cool guy. When things are not going well, he's hiding. So you can't do that, And it shouldn't be up to Eddie to answer financial questions or transfer, related questions. It should be Paul Mitchell as well. He should come out. And when he came out and talked, he basically just is everybody's fault except mine. The not fit for purpose, etc. So everybody's kind of washing their hands at this point, man. AG, and I agree. Howe was happy when he had control. When Stavely was there, he needs to learn. Brent, I do believe PIF are looking at Eddie more than we understand at the moment. Mitchell is going nowhere. That's what the fans need to realize. Well, you would expect it so. He just got here, so But
I'd just like to say that I think for me, I think a football manager is dead. I don't think managers exist anymore. For me, I think Fergie and Wenger were the last two great managers, in my opinion. Like now, it's gone such a business way. The owners and people like that want far too much control that everybody now is a head coach. Like you're essentially a PE teacher. Unfortunately, you don't have control like what Fergie did. Like Fergie had a say in transfers, identified who he wanted, put his guy, who was it, David Gill. David Gill would jump on a plane and come back with a signature, and that would be it. Easy job. But now, like, there's too many people involved because it's much more of a business as it was back then. Like, I had a bit of a disconnect with football. I think if it wasn't for the takeover, I probably wouldn't watch football anymore because I was shite sick of watching Newcastle for years and years.
You watch American football though.
I do. I was more of an NFL fan, like kind of pre-takeover, and like I think if we were still in this position now with Mike Ashley and probably wouldn't have Steve Bruce, it would be some other donkey. Like I probably wouldn't watch it anymore. I'd have lost interest in football. I was losing interest in football for years. The takeover kind of sparked my interest back up because we've had cup finals and we've had Champions League nights, so it's amazing, and I'm enjoying the ride. But that's what we need to realize, that we kind of are like American franchises in terms of like NFL, where they have an owner with the control, and then they have the general manager, and it's the general manager's job to go and like trade for players and go through the draft and whatnot, and then the head coach can have a say, but ultimately it's not up to them. It's not their job to have a say. Like the general manager is paid to pick players and fill the roster. And that's exactly what football's become now. Like Eddie Howe doesn't have nothing to do with, he should do, and I disagree with this. Like I wish we were back in like the Fergie Wenger days. Like I wish one man could have full control, but it doesn't work like that anymore. And that's what fans and Eddie Howe needs to realize. Like you ain't that guy. You were employed to be a head coach, not a manager.
Not the manager. Yeah, exactly. Like he was at Bournemouth and Burnley. That's the problem, isn't it? It's expectations from both sides. It's expectations from the crowd now because we've done so well with very limited resources. And if you want, I mean, the other thing you got to think of, supporting Eddie on this venture, he's had 2 windows now where we've brought nobody in.
Yeah.
So his team is still exactly the same team as it was
true too.
2 years ago.
That is true,
more or less, isn't it?
And a lot of these guys were fighting relegation. Let's be honest. Roger has a question for me. I agree, Keg. Do you think Eddie is comfortable in that role? I don't know what you were saying at the time, but
he has to be. If it's like the head coach job, not like the manager job. Like you signed the contract, you're a head coach. If you don't like it, resign.